Hi everybody, I'm just gonna grab a cup of coffee and then I'll come and do this. Hi everyone. Uh Rock Lover Gordon, you need to find Enchanted Life Path channel and his website. I'll have a look. Um it's gonna be an interesting stream. I'll be with you in about 10 minutes. Hello everybody, how are you? For some reason I'm not live on Rockfin. I should be live on Rockfin, but it's not showing up. It's not showing up as I'm live, which is a shame. I thought I'd got that sorted out, but it's saying it's scheduled and everything, and I've set it all up, but for some reason I'm not live on Rockfin, so I'm going to have to get that sorted out before the next live stream. Hi everybody. I'm here. I was hoping I'm going to be away for about the next 10 days. I was hoping I'd be able to get a podcast in before I went away, but unfortunately I can't really. Scheduling is tight at short notice, so I thought I'd go live and update people on what the latest is with regards to what I found out the other day. Let's go and say hello to everybody. Hi Tia, how are you? Oh yeah, I can see that. Brilliant. I can see up there. Okay. So for those of you who subscribe to me on TikTok, and if you don't subscribe to me on TikTok, why not? I post there at least 10 times a week. So plenty of videos there on multiple topics. I did a video the other day, I think it was yesterday, on what I found out. It's an oldish story. This has been around for quite a while. This is a CNN article from, I think, 2009 or something like that. It's quite a while back. You just take the date on it. I think it's 2009. So this is a photo fit of the suspect, a female suspect in the Madeline Mccann case. Now I'm gonna be getting to the bottom of this. It's going to be quite a long stream. This is probably an hour and a half on this. There's about 10 or 15 articles I want to talk to you about to try and tie everything in as to what's going on here. It's incredible. It really is. And on a cue, I can say Gordon Madeline was captured by the Podesta brothers. He's saying, he used to be used in a ritual involving Obama. Now, I wouldn't go that far and on a cue, but there is some connection to what you're saying. I will get to that in a bit. Okay, so this was what I reported the other day. There was a video that I saw, and this is from a while ago. This is CNN, and they're saying this is the e-fit. This is the sketch of somebody that they wanted to find in connection with the Madeline Mccann disappearance. There's an excellent article on this on a website called trutholfiction.com. I don't know who owns this. It's by somebody called Kim LaCapria. And we're going to unpack it all and start off right here. So, Ghislaine Maxwell is the former romantic partner of Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender whose jailhouse, I won't say that word because I don't believe it was, in 2019, was fodder for a myriad of conspiracy theories, of which now I'm adding to it, I suppose, but I've got some stuff to back this up. She's obviously been found guilty in the cases of supplying young girls and procuring girls for pedophiles. That's the background behind Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm sure that you've heard the latest with regards to her guilty conviction. Madeline Mccann was a 3-year-old who went, obviously, missing. She disappeared from a room in a complex in Portugal in 2007, where her parents were on holiday and they'd left her in the room with, I think, their twin babies alone, and they were in shifts checking. This is what they said, and she went missing. The latest with regards to that case is in 2020, BBC have reported that a 43-year-old German prisoner named Christian has been identified as the main suspect in the case. So they're saying that they've got a main suspect. But why would social media users suspect Ghislaine Maxwell of abducting Madeline Mccann? Shortly after Epstein's August 2019 death, Maxwell was described as his protector and procurer, and obviously she's been found guilty of those charges now. Ghislaine Maxwell was, according to her accusers, Jeffrey Epstein's protector and procurer, his girlfriend and his madam. She was, by all accounts, a soulmate and a mirror image. He grew up in Brooklyn with no money to speak of and never finished college. She's Paris-born, Oxford-educated, a jet-setter who parted with princess and billionaire. She was well-connected. She was well-connected, and she had a very privileged upbringing. If you've seen the size of the house that she was brought up in Paris, well, it's to call it a castle would be an understatement. So together, apparently, they built this network. Now, I'm sure, as I'm sure you are, that she wasn't procuring these minors, these children, for just Epstein. I'm sure it was more than just him, shall we say. This here is two of the other E-fits. This was something that in the 2013, I think it was a BBC Newsnight special, they released these E-fits of two men that they wanted to speak to in connection with the disappearance of Madeline from the time, and this is from the exact time in when she was missing in Portugal. So those are the two E-fits. I'm sure there's going to be some people in the chat going, they look like so and so and so and so. Well, we'll come to that in a bit. So the BBC Crime Watch appeal features E-fit images of a man seen carrying a blonde-haired child of 3 or 4 in the Praia de Luz at the time Madeline went missing. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for those people. Now, the reason this picture came up, is because, oh, sorry, I've just totally messed that up. The reason that came up was because, very difficult, an Australian woman was being sought over the missing British child because she approached a man. Now, apparently this was in Barcelona, in Spain. She approached a man and was asking, are you here to deliver my new daughter? And I'll get to the article in question about that. I think it was London newspapers that reported it and the Sydney Morning Herald that went into it. And again, that's 2009. The conversation is said to have taken place at a bar in the Port Olympic Marina area of Barcelona, Spain, 3 days after she went missing in Portugal. Obviously, Portugal and Spain are right next to each other on the map, just in case you don't know. The McCann family made public a sketch and the description of the woman. That sketch, with an Australian or possible New Zealand accent. Okay, so if you've ever been, especially to America, and you're from the UK, you will know how much they mistake you for Australian. I was only in the US for a few months, and it happened to me probably half a dozen times. So, it's not just America either. Other people mistake it too. If it's why you could mistake Canadian for American sometimes if you're not far from those areas and you're not aware of the slight changes in dialect. So they made public the sketch of a woman with an Australian or possible New Zealand accent who also spoke excellent Spanish and some Catalan. So you're going to be asking, does Ghislaine Maxwell speak Spanish? Well, we'll get to that in a minute as well. The woman was described as looking like Victoria Beckham. Now, I know some people will look at me and think, "Oh, come on, Gordon, this is a bit of a stretch. This is," and I'll look to a certain degree. I'd agree with you, right? But look at this. So that's Ghislaine Maxwell. Let me see if I can get a better clip. That's Ghislaine Maxwell from that time. I mean, you know, it's a bit of a. I mean, to say that could be Victoria Beckham. You know, there's Victoria Beckham. Look. So there's that to start off with. Okay. Well, I mean, world's a big place there, and people can look like each other, right? Well, there are other things that people have noticed as well. There's a young girl, this young girl I think is in Texas. She went missing, and people are saying that might be, I've forgotten her name now, John Bonet. She was like a beauty queen. That's stretching, I think. But nevertheless, I wanted to impart that information to you. This is what people are saying online, that she's also been in connection with that young girl who's gone missing, although I'm not sure about this. But they have freaked out, people have freaked out on the internet about the disappearance of JonBenet Ramsey. That was that little girl as well. So it's not just the saying that is Ghislaine Maxwell in the corner there. Don't know about that. I think that might be a stretch. But she allegedly appears, like I say, in that photo that I've just talked about. Even Rolling Stone have talked about that. So okay, what was she doing in Barcelona? Or what was this person doing in Barcelona? And who was this person in Barcelona? Well, this is from the Sydney Morning Herald at the time, and this is the article that that really was brought to my attention. An Australian woman sought over the missing British child Madeline Mccann approached a man and asked, "Are you here to deliver my new daughter?" London newspapers reported yesterday. The conversation is said to have taken place at a bar in the Port Olympic Marina area of Barcelona, Spain, 3 days after Madeline Mccann vanished in Portugal in 2007. Like I say, this is 2009 this article is from. On Thursday, the McCann family made public a sketch, like I say, that looks uncannily like Ghislaine Maxwell. It might not be her, of course. I'm not saying that it definitely is. I'm just investigating this. The description of the woman was Australian or possibly New Zealand accent, who spoke excellent Spanish and some Catalan, and the woman was described as looking like Victoria Beckham. Well, I mean, like I say, you know, she could be Victoria Beckham in that photo. According to the British newspapers, the woman, who apparently thought the man was a courier, asked him, "Have you got my daughter?" When he just stood there bemused, the woman became agitated and asked, "Have you got her? Have you got the child?" Realising the man had no idea what she was talking about, she then walked away. The Sun said Private Detective David Edgar, who was leading the search for Madeline, refused to discuss the reported conversation for, quote, operational reasons. According to the 2006 census, only 83 women in Australia said they spoke Catalan at home, and just over 51,000 spoke Spanish. Well, we're going to find out about Ghislaine Maxwell's background as to whether she would be able to speak Catalan. Mark Grover, a private detective in Melbourne with experience in tracing missing children, said if he was searching for the women, he would start with inquiries within the Spanish community, along with language schools. So that's where they're saying. Oh, quite. Then we get to this article from CBS News. Just trying to find the date on this. I think this is back in 2009 as well. No, this is from 2013. Okay. A former detective believes new sketches of the suspect could be breakthrough in the case. And these are the sketches. These are the efforts that we're talking about, these two gentlemen here. Going to read this article. We're going to really quite delve into it, get as much information as possible, because you need all the information to get a good picture and to understand that maybe it's not a stretch. This isn't. Maybe this, you know, actually there's something to this. I wouldn't be doing a segment about it if I didn't think there was something iffy. Last week, it says, like I say, this is 2013, a British television programme broadcast 2 police artist renderings of a possible suspect in the Madeline Mccann case. The 4-year-old disappeared from a resort in southern Portugal in 2007. So CBS are writing a report on it, on what Newsnight reported, and these are the EFITs that were distributed at that time. You've probably already seen this, but I'm going to... So, that's the EFIT, and that's John Podesta. Okay. Why am I bringing up John Podesta? Well, John Podesta, by the way, is... what was he? DNC chair? Let me just check that. Was it DNC chair? He was like he's a major head of the DNC in America. He served as White House Chief of Staff to President Bill Clinton 2008 to 2001 and counselor to Obama 2018 to 2015. And what was he? Was he DNC chair? He was co-chairman of the Obama-Biden Transition Project. He was chairman of Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. So he wasn't DNC chair, he was chairman of Hillary Clinton's campaign. As for the other sketch, well, this is Tony Podesta's brother, John Podesta. Okay, now we start to make... So it's still a stretch, isn't it? I'm still stretching, but trust me, we're gonna get closer with this. Okay, we're still stretching, but we're gonna get closer. So lots of other people have made these connections. You know, I'm just investigating it, really, trying to figure out what could have happened here and whether Ghislaine Maxwell, well, whether she had anything to do with this. Right now, I apologise for 2 of the sources I'm about to come to. One of them's the Daily Mail. And the other one's the Sun, unfortunately. The villa where paedophile MP Clement Freud hosted the McCanns, weeks after the McCanns went missing. So, this is an article in the Daily Mail. I'm going to have to, I think, take this out of reader view, so I'm sorry if you see ads or anything like that on the side of it, because I'm going to need the pictures. But Madeline Mccann, obviously when she went missing, there's a picture on here. Where is it? No. Let me find it. Just bear me a second. Ah, where did it go? I can't find it. I'll have to come back to it. So, in Portugal, where Madeline Mccann went missing, I wish I had the picture because you'd be able to see. But in the resort where they went missing, from where the McCanns were, they couldn't see their apartment where Madeline McCann was staying. And the McCanns said that they turned up with their friends at 8:30 at night, and their friends recounted. I mean, one of the friends said that they didn't turn out until just shortly before 9. So there's a gap there of about half an hour between the testimonies. But they then said they took it in shifts to go back, Madeline McCann's father and mother, and to check on the daughter every 20 minutes or so, I suppose. And then when it was the mother's turn to go and check, that's when she found that her daughter wasn't there. So why am I bringing up John Podesta and Tony Podesta? Well, John Podesta and Tony Podesta were in the area at that time. They were there. They were stopping here at this mansion owned by Sir Clement Freud, who is that guy, who is a known paedophile, he died, I think, in 2009. And they were stopping, I believe, with his son in the area. And when I say in the area, I really do mean in the area. Look, there's McCann's holiday apartment. That's 200 foot. I mean, that's what? 200, 300 meters away? Maybe a quarter of a mile, a third of a mile. They were stopping there. John and Tony Podesta were. And I can't confirm that, by the way. This is I say that they were stopping there. I haven't got confirmation of that. I've got a lot of reports to say that they were stopping there, though. And I am sure that if they weren't, that it would have been confirmed that they weren't stopping there. Clement Freud wasn't there. But a couple of months later, the McCanns went to his villa, this villa, and he cooked them a meal. I'm going to read this. Like I say, I apologise a little bit because it's the mail. Let's see if I can just get the ads out of the way. With its swimming pool and sea views over Praia da Luz, this is the Portugal holiday home where paedophile Sir Clement Freud entertained the McCanns in the weeks and months after their daughter Madeline vanished. Sir Clement Freud was also a Liberal MP as well, remember. The shamed MP invited Kate and Jerry to his £1 million whitewashed villa on the Algarve, where he gave them a lunch of egg and watercress salad and risotto, and Kate McCann said that risotto was the best she'd ever tasted. She crowed about it. Freud's opening words to the couple after they crossed the threshold of the Casa de Colina at midday was, "Can I interest you in a strawberry vodka?" Day drinking. Wonderful, mind you. In Portugal on holiday. It is, I mean, 2 months though. 2 months after your daughter's gone. Okay, all right. I mean, it wasn't known that he was a paedophile at this time, by the way. That's a important point to make. Somebody actually heard Kate McCann talking about Clement Freud. I think it was in her book she wrote about it. And one of Clement Freud's victims actually read the excerpt, and she was so mortified she went to the police. I think it was sometime after 2 years later, she went to the police and made the complaint against Sir Clement Freud, and then other people started coming forward as well. It is here on a hillside, not far from where Madeline disappeared, that the child-abusing BBC star brazenly teased Kate about her being an nymphomaniac. It's always the BBC, isn't it? Jimmy Savile. In her heartbreakingly candid account of Madeline's abduction, Kate described visiting Freud as like visiting your granddad after a horrible day at school. She recalled how he brought a smile to her face when he greeted them one night at the property wearing just a nightshirt and offered her a large brandy. Freud, who died in 2009 aged 84, was McCann's shoulders to cry on when he offered Kate and Jerry use of the holiday home to get away from the media glare after Maddie 3 disappeared. He wrote them in a letter inviting them to lunch in the villa in 2007. I have a house in Prada Luz. He wrote, being ashamed of the intrusion into your lives by our media. And if you would care to come to lunch, dinner at any time before Wednesday next, do ring me and let me know. I cook decent meals. Kate Alake revealed, I'm embarrassed to admit that Jerry and I thought the letter was a hoax, more embarrassed still, but while we were vaguely aware of Sir Clement, we did have our memories refreshed by Sandy Justine just before we could place him exactly. In other words, somebody was like, he's a really famous guy. And they were like, okay, yeah, we'll go and have a meal with him. Fine. He's really famous. Freud was described as a national treasure by Gordon Brown at his funeral in 2009. Beautiful, beautiful house. That's how far it was away. Well, if that's 200 foot, that's less than 1,200 feet. It's less than 400 meters. As the crow flies, it's a quarter of a mile. And like I say, it's alleged that the pedesters were stopping there, and those are the effects. Those are the two effects that the police want. They went over the house next day, accompanied by their family, for lunch and strawberry vodkas around the pool. She wrote of the lunch, thank God for people like Sir Clement who kept us smiling, obviously unaware that he was a paedophile at the time. Their next visit to the villa came when Kate and Jerry had become the focus of bungled Portuguese police investigation, when they were incorrectly named as suspects in the investigation. I'll get to that in a bit. We found Clement watching a cookery programme dressed as promised in his nightshirt. He was so ordinary and comforting. Oh, God, if you went over somebody's house for dinner and they were in their nightshirt, wouldn't you think, what's the matter with you, you weirdo? You're meeting somebody for the first time and he's in his pajamas. He gave me one of his looks and a giant glass of brandy and managed to get a smile out of me with his greetings. So, Kate, which of the devout Catholic, alcoholic, depressed, nymphomaniac parts is correct? I think that must have been what she was classed as in the media. Now Kate and Joe McCann are said to be horrified at claims the grandfatherly figure who befriended them in Pride of Luz was a child abuser. The three women who have so far told of their horrific stories about Freud have revealed the married father of five as a serial child predator. Sylvia Wolseley was just 10 when Freud, then 24. I think he is Sigmund Freud's grandson, by the way, or he was. I think he was. I did read that today. And described as a national treasure by Gordon Brown at his funeral, began abusing her. She was later brought up as his daughter and invited into his marital bed alongside his wife, actress Jill. Leaves a bad taste in your mouth, doesn't it? Freud also lured a 14-year-old to his home, got her drunk and molested her in the bathroom. A third woman, Vicky Hayes, has told us that Clement groomed her from the age of 14 and violently raped her when she was 17. He seems like a lovely man, doesn't he? She said he plied her with champagne and took her virginity. Mrs. Hayes gave her horrific account to ITV News last night and recalled how being paralysed with fear when the manipulative abuser raped her, then callously advised her to ring me if she was pregnant. Years later, when she was pregnant by her husband with her first child, he tried to molest her again. She reported Freud to the police after he died, but then contacted police again when she realised his connection to the Madeline case, when she read in Kate McCann's book that he had cooked for the McCanns at his Portuguese holiday villa. Obviously, nobody knew at this time, obviously, before he was dead. I mean, nobody, or very few people knew in the public eye. But yeah, this is a sexual predator and paedophile who has a villa less than half a mile, certainly less than half a mile from where Madeline McCann disappeared, which allegedly was loaned out to John and Tony Podesta at the time when Madeline McCann disappeared. It's not so much of a stretch anymore, is it? Once you start reading into this, we're not even halfway yet. Nobody else would have thought Freud capable of abuse and rape, but he did it to me. He was capable of anything. I remember everybody saying the same about Jimmy Savile when that first started coming out. She reported her concerns to the local police force in Suffolk, and her son wrote to the Metropolitan Police to pass on his mother's account and concerns over Freud's connection to the McCanns. They received no response. Mrs. Hayes says, "Am I angry? The police were dismissive of my information. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter. I have a girl like Madeline. If you have something you feel needs to be looked at, then you have to tell someone. That's why I contacted the police." Freud's family says the former MP was in the UK at the time of Madeline's appearance. So he was over here. But like I say, it's alleged that the Podesta brothers were stopping at his villa. If that's the case, Rocklover says Carl at Enchanted Life Path has Nicole Junkerman, who was employed by Matt Hancock as tech advisor for the NHS, tied up with the Lolita Express and Panama Papers. I've been looking at that website, that Enchanted Life Path website. It's been pretty good. There's a couple of his victims now. A source close to the McCann said, "It certainly raises a lot of questions. They will be appalled to hear the details. Clement Freud invited them around for drinks to show them some sympathy." Really? He had a family home in Praia da Luz, and the invitation came as a bolt from the blue. They were grateful for his sympathy. It was a chance for them to take time out and have a drink by someone being friendly. The Met has not commented on how the new information about Freud, like I say, this is going back quite a way. So there's the connection. That's how Freud is connected to the McCanns, and how the Podestas are connected to this as well. It's important to note here, Britain Andy Wright bought the villa from the Freuds in 2002, but continued to rent it to Sir Clement. And there you go. So that's the connection to the Podestas. Right, I'm going to read this as well from CBS News. I knew there's a reason why. So this is from CBS News 2013. And this is just after the BBC have done their news night with those two EFITs. Last week, a British television programme revealed police artist renderings. The 4-year-old disappeared from a resort in southern Portugal. Although Madeline has never been found, Portuguese authorities closed the case in 2008. However, Madeline's parents, Jerry and Kate McCann, have continued to search for their missing daughter, and last year police in England began to reinvestigate the case by examining reports from Portuguese police, private investigators hired by the McCanns, and leads developed by the Metropolitan Police in London. The renewed investigation is now publicly focused on the two artist renderings of a suspect. They were made in 2008 after McCann private investigators interviewed Martin and Mary Smith of Ireland. So that's where these two photo fits have come from. Martin and Mary Smith of Ireland. According to Ian Horrocks, a former Metropolitan Police detective. The Smiths were vacationing in Praia da Luz, Portugal, the same week as the McCanns and their 3 children were on holiday in the seaside town. God damn, I mean, it's like, it's like the E-fit has been taken from the photograph, isn't it? You know? The Smiths say they saw a man carrying a blonde child in his arms. The man was between 5'5" and 5'9", with light-coloured hair. The child had very white skin. The sighting was about 9:55, 400 yards southwest of the McCann's vacation apartment. Though the police artist renderings were made in 2008 and Portuguese police took statements from the Smiths, the Express in England reported today that British police did not learn about the drawings of a suspect until 2 years ago. After Madeline disappeared, Portuguese police considered the McCann suspects in their daughter's disappearance for the next 14 months. And until very recently, Portuguese police did not allow their counterparts in the UK to access the case files in Portugal. Why not? Portuguese authorities said they considered the case closed. The McCanns are currently pursuing a defamation lawsuit against the former lead Portuguese detective on their daughter's case. I'll get to that in a minute as well. And this is another sketch of... Now, they think it's the same man, this is. They're saying, oh, that could be the same man, but I mean... It could just be a different man that they saw, wasn't it? Ian Horrocks, a former detective in Britain, believes the worldwide broadcast of the artist's renderings of a new suspect could be an important breakthrough, but he also advises caution. Horrocks pointed out that one of the main problems with the artist's renderings is the fact that there are two different faces. There's no way of knowing, says Horrocks, which one is right. Well, maybe both of them are, you know? Maybe both of them are. I mean, what do you think? You know? Do you think they're of the same person, or do you think they're of two different people? Horrocks told Crimesider that the location of the Smith sighting, 400 yards from where the McCanns were staying, is also troubling. Horrocks estimates it could take 5 to 10 minutes for a person to walk that distance, carrying a child who was just being abducted. That, according to Horrocks, is too long a time. Someone could raise an alarm, suggesting that the abductor probably would have been more careful. All right. He speculates that if the Smith sighting is one of Madeline's kidnapper, then the chances of the suspect chances are the suspect lived near the area where they saw the person carrying the child, or, and I'm just spitballing here, or they didn't live near the area. They were stopping in a house that one of their friends rented. One of their friends that happened to be a known pedophile or come out as a pedophile afterwards. So there's that. We need to know who this bloke was. Clement Freud. This is the grandson of Sigmund Freud, I was correct. Yeah, the father of modern psychology. This is the important bit down here. In June 2016, allegations were made in Exposure, Abused and Betrayed, a life sentence, an ITV documentary broadcast on 15th of June that Freud was a pedophile in the late 40s and the 70s. Two women who did not know each other spoke publicly for the first time about how Freud preyed upon them when they were still children and into young adulthood. Sylvia Wolseley contacted the ITV news team, the same team who exposed Jimmy Savile, to tell them she had been abused for many years by Freud from the age of 10. Really does leave a bad taste in your mouth. In the 1950s to when she left home at age 19. The second woman, who remained anonymous, said that Freud groomed her from the age of 11 in 1971, abused her at 14 and violently raped her at 18, by which time Freud had become a Liberal MP, sharing an office with fellow MP Cyril Smith. No, there's somebody else who's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth. If you don't know who that is, yeah, take a look at him. And if you think he looks like a pedophile, that's because he is. Or was. A prolific abuser of children who was first accused of abuse in the 1960s but was never prosecuted. So, you know, look at who his friends are. On the day the documentary broadcast, Clement Freud's widow, Jill Freud, issued an apology to both women. She accepted the claims and issued a statement of sympathy for the victims, saying, "I sincerely hope they will now have some peace." Remember, I just read you an article saying that it's alleged that his wife in the marital bed, I think it said, didn't it? A third woman, Vicky Hayes, has alleged that she was assaulted and raped by Freud when she was aged 17. Hayes said Freud had no right to his reputation as a pillar of society and ought to be posthumously stripped of his knighthood. It also emerged that Operation U-Tree had been passed of Freud's name in 2012 when two alleged victims made accusations to the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Scotland Yard was examining the details of the allegations, and detectives were said to be looking into the possibility that Freud had associated with other alleged abusers at the time of the claims. Allegations have also been made of predatory behaviour towards young female students during his time as rector of the University of Dundee in the 1970s. And then we're going to come on to Craig Murray, and we'll get to this article in a bit, a former British ambassador, who you will all know well, I'm sure, who's thankfully free now, having been put in prison for doing journalism. He described an incident where Freud asked the president of the Students' Union to pimp for him and select a woman to entertain him. We're going to come a little bit more about that particular thing in a minute. Yeah, so this is the Sun article. I'm sorry about this. I couldn't find a link. Cops invested. So this is from around that time as well. Let me just get the date. So this is from 2016. So we're getting closer to the present day now. Cops investigating the disappearance of Madeline Mccann are probing the past of shamed paedophile Sir Clement Freud. So they have been investigating, he said, emerged today as further victims came forward to accuse him of sexually abusing them. A major inquiry dealing into historic child sexual abuse by prominent people is collating many new allegations against the late politician and TV personality. I mean, They have a certain kind of look, don't they? Do you know what I mean? They kind of look, you know. You know what I mean, don't you? You know what I mean? More victims have come forward. So this is basically, I've read you out that there's 3 or 4 victims. Well, although Freud cannot be investigated because he died he died aged 84 in 2009. Details of new victims are being recorded by Operation Hydrant, an umbrella inquiry set up by National Council of Police Chiefs. Almost 250 politicians and TV and film personalities have come under the Hydrant spotlight. That's a lot. 2016. One source says Freud could be the new Jimmy Savile. Oh, what a lovely, lovely title to behold. As with Savile, Stuart Hall and Rolf Harris, more victims have come forward since he was named and shamed. So it's the same again. These poor women have had their lives turned upside down. They know they're going against really famous people. They know their lives are going to be destroyed and what have you. So it takes 1 or 2 really brave people to come forward, and then the floodgates open and other women get the courage to come forward. It's always the way that this happens, isn't it, seemingly? Two officers from the Met's Operation Grange inquiry, which has spent £12 million in a 5-year hunt to discover Madeline's fate, visited 64-year-old Vicky on Wednesday. Her son Mason, 42, said they apologised for not doing anything with our information. They totally ignored it. It made no sense. Freud was a predatory paedophile. They just ignored these women who were coming forward with details that they were horrifically attacked and raped, and they were just ignored by the police. But if you are protesting climate change, boy, is Priti Patel going to come down on you. If you're blocking a road, you're going to get a prison, pal. But, raping women, police haven't got time to bother with it. The police spent all that money investigating her disappearance, but didn't bother to check out something that was right in front of their eyes. My mother is the most decent and straight woman you will ever meet, married to a former RAF squadron leader, yet the police still didn't take her seriously. It's disgraceful. Probably she didn't have enough money. If she was rich, I'm pretty sure that they would have paid attention back then. So, yeah, this Freud guy, just to ram the point home, he's a proper piece of work. And now we're going to come back full circle to Ghislaine Maxwell. You remember those artists? Remember they said they were looking for a big Victoria Beckham lookalike. I mean, come on. She was born in 61, so she would have been at the time of the incident in Spain. She would have been in her 40s, mid 40s, not 30s. But I mean, she looked pretty damn good for 40 odd back then. It's got to be said. She was born in France, raised in Oxford, and she attended the Balliol College, Oxford. Do you know what she studied? She studied language, historical language, modern history and languages at Oxford. She was multilingual, bilingual. She spoke several languages. She lived in France. She lived in Spain. She obviously lived in the UK. She fits the profile. There was something on here that I wanted to talk to you about. There it is. Obviously, she was daughter of Robert Maxwell. We know his ties to, allegedly, Mossad. She studied first at Oxford High School for Girls in North Oxford, and then, aged 9, was enrolled at Edgarly Hall Balding Preparatory Prep School in Somerset. Preparatory Prep School. Followed by Headington School at age 13. Maxwell attended Marlborough College to study A-levels before going on to earn a degree in modern history with languages from Balliol College, Oxford. She had a close relationship with her father. Her father installed computers at Headingley in 73. And basically after college she went to work at one of her dad's places, but then he sent her to Spain. And so yeah, she spoke Spanish. She fits the profile. She probably, I would have thought, having a degree in modern history and languages, she might even speak Catalan as well. And if she does that, if I could get confirmation she does speak some Catalan, then she's going to really fit the profile here. Before Jeffrey Exbing, Ghislaine Maxwell was an Oxford United director. This is how she was described. When aged 22, she became director of Oxford United in 1984. Director of Oxford United. She had become a familiar figure at matches, sitting alongside her father, club chairman Robert Maxwell, in the director's box, sporting a yellow and blue United scarf. In an interview with our sister paper, the Oxford Times, she revealed that she had started at a United Supporters Club in Balliol College. Okay. So I don't know why I've bookmarked this, but I'm sure I'll get to it in a bit. Here we go. After her A-levels at Marlborough, she joined her father's Pergamon press at Headington, doing anything from typing to managing congresses. But after 9 months, her father sent her alone to Spain to fend for herself and sell books. He said, go and do a useful job and come back fluent. I wouldn't say I did a brilliant job, but I did sell some books and came back fluent. So there you go. There's confirmation that she speaks Spanish. Now we're getting somewhere, aren't we? Next article. Actually, Ghislaine, somebody says, Ghislaine, whatever, I don't care what her name, how to pronounce her name. She procures young people for pedophiles and is a pedophile herself. I couldn't care how to say her name. I really couldn't. Ghislaine, pedophile. That's what she is. And Dan Did Not says, Peter Mandelson went on the Lolita Express 10 times. Don't know whether that's true, mate. He was in the book. He was in the book 10 times and he rang Epstein in prison. I think you're right. He's in Ghislaine's little black book. All right, next article. This is from something called the Steeple Times by a guy called Matthew Steeples, who's done some good work on this. I'm going to read this article and I think one more. And that will get you, well, somewhere to where I am at the moment and where my mind is. And we can have a chat about that afterwards. According to the form, Matthew Steeples highlights how the Mandelson media method is very much in play in both the case of the Prince Andrew Jeffrey Epstein connection with renewed interest in the Madeline Mccann disappearance. Now, why am I bringing up Peter Mandelson? Well, as I said, Peter Mandelson, as I just said to the chap in the chat, Peter Mandelson was in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book, Ghislaine Maxwell's little black book, 10. He had 10 different ways of contacting him. Pretty sure Podestas were in there as well. Is that right? Is that right? Let me know in the chat if anybody knows. Was the Podestas in little black book? Let's have a check. I seem to remember. Courtney Love is in there. I'll check on that. I think he was there. Chris Tucker, Robert and Blaine Trump. I'll come back to that at the end. I'll come back to that. So, according to the former British ambassador, Craig Murray, when Madeline Mccann went missing on the 3rd of May 2007, New Labour's number 10 saw, in typical Blair fashion, a highly photogenic tragedy which there might be popularity in appearing to work on. I'm going to read Craig's article after this. It's excellent, and it'll give you some insight as to, well, we can start connecting dots. Guided by, quote, the Prince of Darkness at the heart of New Labour, with his dark satanic looks and his Machiavellian meddling, the political party Peter Mandelson, ever so brilliantly guided in terms of electoral success, knew the value of such, and they well and truly milked it in the matter of McCann. So what Craig is alleging there is that when the disappearance, when that happened, Mandelson, who was, Tony Blair's Mr. Fix-It, I suppose. The Dark Lord behind the dark hand in the glove. He was out in front of it and using it as a political weapon, if you like. As Andrew Marr pointed out in The History of Modern Britain, screened on BBC4 last night, in his example, highlighting the case of the senseless murder of an innocent toddler, Jamie Bulger, by two truly evil teenagers through John Major's premiership, Madeline McCann's disappearance occurred just a month before Blair left office and Gordon Brown took over. News of it dominated the media during the transition period. So, definitely going to use it, isn't he, at that period? Defining the Brown years, during which Peter Mandelson was a government minister from October 2008 until May 2010, in terms of the vast acres of pages devoted to the case of gaming disproportionate attention from government. Thus, as Murray pointed out, British diplomatic staff were under direct instruction to support the McCanns far beyond the usual. And that's what we're going to get to now. because this is the article by Craig Murray. He says, he points out here, he was going to write about the McCanns and he didn't up until, I think he wrote this in, was it 2014, 2013? No, this is 2016 he wrote this. So, this is the article. This week there have been two more developments, so this is 2016. The Home Office has announced that it will fund still further the police investigation into Madeline's disappearance, on which £10 million has already been spent. You know, I am sure people out there, if they know anything about the Madeline McCann case and they've been following it, will have screamed, why are they spending all this money? Why are they spending all these millions and millions of pounds for this one girl? Because let's face it, if the McCanns were on benefits, they'd be in prison. I've screamed that 100 times. I really have. If they were on benefits, they'd be in prison. Why are they spending all these millions of pounds into this investigation? You know, it's a riddle. Plus, the appeals court in Lisbon has overturned the libel verdict against the Portuguese detective Gonçalo Amaral, who led the case and formed his own firm convictions as to what happened. The €500,000 libel award to the McCanns is now cancelled. And that appears in this article. I mentioned that earlier. The detective who said they faked the abduction, he thinks that they faked the abduction. They sued him for €500,000, won, and then he appealed it and it was overturned. So they tried to sue him for saying that they faked Madeline's abduction and they lost. None of these sums of money would matter in the least, of course, and practically nobody would grudge any expense to have Madeline McCann alive, safe and happy. That's a very important point. You know, anything that I say here tonight, we must understand that there's a poor little girl who, wow. There can be nothing worse for a parent than the loss of a child, whatever the circumstances. If the McCanns genuinely do not know what happened, that must be agonising beyond belief. My grandparents had a 19-year-old son, an uncle I never knew, missing in action in World War II, and the pain never left them, even when his fate was resolved. And yet, it is because our children are so precious to us that we treat them as such. I recall an incident on Jamie's first birthday and he recalls an incident where, you know, he ran downstairs and he felt ever so terrible because he'd left his own son, alone in the room for like 30 seconds, you know. I remember when we were growing up, we were never left alone, unsupervised for any amount of time, not until we're like probably coming up to teenage years, 12, 13, and even then it was for like minutes at a time. I can't imagine leaving my child. I just can't. I'm the same as Craig. I can imagine I would be the same as Craig in that situation with my kid, but you know. He continues, I find the McCann's behaviour indefensible. Me too. There appears to be a disconnect in the public mind in the UK which prevents people from realising just how far the McCanns were from their children. And he shows this graphic. Can't really... The graphic shows, let me just see if I can... No, can't find it. "8:30 a.m. is the time that they said, and here's the hotel. You can just make out that this is where sort of difficult to make out. This is. I can't expand it either. But if you haven't seen just how far away they were from their daughter, it was away, you know? It was away so they could go drink with their friends. I find their actions indefensible too. There appears to be... This is a useful graphic. Okay, I'll show you that. The McCanns could not actually see their apartment from the tapas bar due to the wall around the pool. To get back there, they had to use the gate to walk around that wall, which made it a 75-yard hike, and the apartment had double doors onto the street on the opposite side of the block, from that facing the pool. I do not see how anybody understanding this geography considered that it was normal parenting for the McCanns to leave 1-year-olds and a 3-year-old alone in the apartment in these circumstances for hours. Neither can I. And I'm sure you in the chat will agree. Leaving a 3-year-old and 2 1-year-old twins in a room. What were they going on holiday with, you know? But leaving those... Why couldn't they go to Butlins? Why they got to go to Portugal? I can't imagine. I would never do it. I'm not a parent and I would never do it. Even I know not to do that. And I'm an idiot. These are doctors. They repeatedly did it several days running. It is something I would absolutely never dream of doing with my own children. If nothing else, had any of the children been crying and in distress, and the chances of that with 3 tiny children are pretty high, there was no way they could hear them. In fact, I've seen a documentary when I think Madeline asks, I was calling for you, but you weren't there, something like that. So it's very possible they were calling for their parents. Or she was calling for their parents. The claimed abduction is not the only thing that could have happened. Colic, vomiting, sore nappies, coughing, choking, bad dreams, overheating, all kinds of things that can distress children. So as far as I can judge, it's not that I am weird in my own views. Rather, it is absolutely accepted in British society that you do not leave 1-year-olds without the care of an adult. Why are the McCanns an exception? Like I say, if they were on benefits, they'd still be in prison now. But they're not. So millions of pounds have been spent on them. Well, not on them, on finding their daughter. Which leads me to the question on why they received such exceptional treatment from the British authorities. Yeah, this is the weird one. Directed straight from number 10, to the extent that Blair and Brown eventually gave them a public relations representative. I used at one stage to be resident clerk in the FCO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and now abolished post effectively of night duty officer. I can tell you from horrible personal experience that the FCO deals with gut-wrenching cases of lost or dead children abroad frequently. I spent one of the most terrible 3 hours of my life through to a cold dawn on the phone with a hysterical bereaved mother desperate to explore any avenue that might give a possibility that the boy who had just drowned in Brazil was misidentified as her son. On average, I am afraid such tragedies get substantially less than the 1% of the police resources that were devoted to the McCanns. So if other children that go missing get 1% of the... Why did the McCanns, who, let's face it, were definitely at fault, they were definitely, it was bad parenting, why do they get so many millions thrown at finding their daughter? He says this, Craig does, British diplomatic staff were under direct instruction to support the McCanns far beyond the usual and put pressure on the Portuguese authorities over the case. I have direct information that more than one of those diplomatic staff found the McCanns less than convincing and their stories inconsistent. Embassy staff were perturbed to be ordered that British authorities were to be present at every contact between the McCanns and the Portuguese police. This again is absolutely not the norm. On a daily basis, more British citizens have contact with foreign authorities than the total staff of the FCO. It would be simply impossible to give that level of support to everybody. Plus, against jingoist presumption, a great many Brits who have contact with foreign police are actually criminals. The British ambassador in Portugal, John Buck, had been my direct boss at the FCO. He was deputy head of the Southern European Department. He and his staff were concerned by contradictions in the McCann story. The embassy warned in writing that being perceived as too close to the McCanns might not prove wise. They demanded the instruction from London be reconfirmed. It was. I know of people's misgivings because I was told directly, but material was also leaked to a Belgian newspaper confirming what I have said. It was published by the Express, but like so many other material which was not supportive of the McCanns, it got taken down. Interesting, isn't it? The supportive stuff of the McCanns gets published, but the negative side, don't see that side. We see this all the time with the manipulation of the news media. We're seeing it right now with COVID more than anything. You know, anything that will promote vaccine or taking a vaccine, great, publish that. Anything that's factual that might, no, not if it promotes. Not if it'll make people hesitant of a vaccine, you know. So they don't publish factual information. They're doing it again here. There's evidence of it here. Fortunately, that last link preserved it. It also shows that the FCO continues to refuse freedom of information requests for the material on the interesting grounds that it might damage relations with Portugal. Interesting. For the avoidance of doubt, I do not believe there was a high-level paedophile ring involved. Okay, I make no such argument, nor do I claim to know what happened to Madeline McCann, but I do believe that the McCanns were less than exemplary parents, as do I. I believe that New Labour's number 10 saw, in typical Blair fashion, a highly photogenic tragedy, which there might be popularity in appearing to work on. I believe there is genuine danger that the high-profile support from top of the British government might have put some psychological pressure on the Portuguese investigators and prosecuting officers in their determinations. So there you go. We have, I think that's everything right. We have the EFIT. We have the EFIT. I mean, that is scary. We have an EFIT of a woman in Barcelona asking, have you got my daughter? Are you here to deliver my daughter? You got my new child, etc. Who looks suspiciously like Ghislaine Maxwell. Let's face it. Ghislaine, whatever you want to call her. We have these two EFITs. Released in 2013 of a person, they said. It's two descriptions of the same person, they said, but it could be two different people who were holding a 3 or 4 year old girl, an extremely pale 3 or 4 year old girl, around 400 yards from where Madeline went missing at about 90 minutes after. It's reported she went missing, or it's not about 90 minutes after she was left alone for the first time. What do you think, guys? And ladies, the report said that lady in Barcelona, by the way, looked like Victoria Beckham. I mean, yeah, spoke with an Australian accent. Well, I mean, our accents get mistaken for Australian accents all the time, don't they? We have millions being spent by the British Foreign and Commonwealth on it. Millions. We have Peter Mandelson and Tony Blair using the story, manipulating the story for their own ends because Blair's about to leave office and what have you. We've got Mandelson appearing 10 times in Ghislaine Maxwell's Black Book. I mean, who needs 10 different ways of contacting somebody? I haven't got 10 different ways of contacting my entire family. Why does paedophile Jeffrey Epstein and his paedophile procurer of young girls, Ghislaine Maxwell, have 10 different ways of contacting Peter Mandelson, who phoned Epstein when he was in prison? By the way, Epstein, 2007 it was, I think July 2007. Maddie went missing May 2007. Epstein, July 2007. He started, well, his conviction, I suppose. He had his conviction, which was a sweetheart deal where he got to leave his cell whenever the hell he liked, by the look of it. This is much deeper, I think, than we've ever imagined. There are massive conspiracy theories around this as well. Obviously, there are, you'll get people, you get words like Pizzagate and QAnon pop up. I'm not here to disparage anybody's theories or anything like that, but all I will say is this: to every, if ever anything is going to come out in the public sphere that is true, that is an embarrassment to the government, or an embarrassment to anybody in power, especially government or intelligence agencies. Intelligence agencies, we know, go to work in misinformation campaigns, and personally, I think QAnon definitely is a misinformation CIA campaign that are pumping out like 5% truth and 95% bullshit to keep everybody confused. And I think that's a lot of what these theorizing places are. It's intelligence trying to muddy the waters to try and keep everybody mushrooms in the dark, fed on bullshit. That's as far as I've got, people. I just, I wanted to go live tonight and talk about that. And talk about just, there's way more to this than meets the eye, and those photos are just too close. Those EFITs could be an EFIT of the photos. They really could. All right, I'm going to have a quick chat to you all in the comments, and then I'll take off. Like I say, I won't be around for the next 10 days. And then I'll Kim Bartley says, I'm sure those EFITs were just one person. That's what they're saying. They're saying those EFITs are they're saying the EFIT is of the one person. Those two separate EFITs, but they look totally different and they fit perfectly to the, Richard Banks, apart from when I used to hide in the air in cover to sky school Gordon, yeah. I happen to know he did that as well. Those are eerie likenesses, says Pat Brannigan. It's incredible, isn't it? Those EFITs could be of those pictures of the pedestals. Another worldview as possible says, I think Craig Money should reconsider his position discounting a high-level ritual child abuse ring. He didn't discount that. Read what he said. Read his words. He didn't discount that it was. He just said, listen, I'm not saying there is. That's different to saying, I'm saying there's not, isn't it? He's not. He's very careful with his words. I'm not saying there is. I'm not saying there's a high-level paedophile ring either. I'm not saying that. But I'm also not saying there's definitely not one. Do you see what I mean? It's got to be careful. Make sure you get people's words exactly. Don't chastise or don't, think that people should change their position when they had the right position in the first place. This was heavy, says Tia Willie. It really was. I spent all day looking at it, and it's frightening. Obviously, you're talking about poor children that have gone missing and the worst kinds of. It's why it's important that we get to the bottom of this, and it's why it's important that the truth out's on it, because people are screwing your kids. People are screwing our kids. Powerful people who have got powerful contacts in government and intelligence agencies. Why isn't anything being done about this? Why haven't we heard any investigation? Jamie Rose says, fuck's sake, does Alex Jones have to be right? Listen, right? I'm going to say the same thing as Joe Rogan does. for everything that Alex Jones has got wrong in the past, and he has. I'm telling you now, he's got a hell of a lot more right. And if you were to actually listen to Alex Jones, just Alex Jones, or just the BBC, you'll have a better idea of what's going on in the world by listening to Alex Jones, because the BBC are lying to you about bloody everything. You know? Alex Jones is telling the truth about Julian Assange. BBC aren't. Alex Jones is telling the truth about Syria. BBC aren't. You know? So for all the people who say, you know, I understand, Jamie, you're not disparaging on Alex Jones there at all. But does he have to be right? I understand, but he's right on a lot of stuff, especially back in 2000s. The stuff he was unearthing in the early 2000s, he was great. It takes its toll on you. I know the mental. I know the mental stress that it can put on somebody when you're doing what we do, what I do, what Alex Jones does. I'm not saying I'm in this same category at all, but there's a mental stress on you that you couldn't. It's incredible when you're reading about all the horrible awfulness in the world and how children are being raped and murdered and killed, and how governments are just starving other countries because for oil and resources. It's horrible. It can have a real mental stress. So I can understand how somebody like Alex Jones could go off the rails. I really can. And if you've done this, what he does for any amount of time, you'll understand. I know that of people who were doing this, good YouTubers, really good YouTubers who were doing this when I first started, that don't do it anymore because of the stress and the mental strain it takes on you. So I can understand. I mean, if he has gone off the deep end a little bit, you can understand why. It doesn't make him wrong on a lot of stuff. Okay. Check out Ghislaine's sisters. Yeah, we'll be looking into that, Mason du Suave. It is alleged that they are agents of a certain state that shall be not be mentioned. All right, everybody, that's me out. I wanted to tell you all the what I found. Oh, Darren Levy, so you've sent a super chat. Thanks very much for that, Darren. I've just noticed. A few years back when those mudshot photos came out, looking like Podesta and his brother, and Wiener sent an email to the McCann's charity, got an email response saying, "How dare I besmirch them?" Wow. And Anthony Weiner. Yes, I see what you mean. You got an email response saying our dispersion. Well, I mean, you were on the right track, maybe, Darren. You know, maybe you were too close. Maybe you were like Icarus, too close to the sun. All right. Okay, everybody. That's me out. I will be, like I say, I'll be gone for 10 days. I'll be back a week after next, probably. Well, I mean, I'll probably be dropping stuff in the meantime. Just won't be doing any live feeds. Thanks very much for all your support, everybody. For the people who mentioned the problems I was having with my website, thank you very much. That problem is now resolved. It wasn't a problem at my end. It was a problem at the hosting end. I have been hacked a couple of times in the last few months, which has caused a few glitches. And yeah, I'll be back with more podcasts in very, very shortly. Thanks to everybody who supports me. I don't get money from YouTube advertising. I've switched off the adverts on YouTube. I survive pretty much totally on the your good graces and your donations, and I really want everything that I do to be put out free. So yeah, if you can support me, please do. go to my website, gordondimmock.com, to find out ways of doing that. Sign up to the mailing list as well. I'm going to be more involved in sending out mailing lists, etc., to people and get more involved in talking to you directly. So please do that. Please sign up to the mailing list. Sign up to my Twitter, although I'm not going to be there much longer, but I don't think, because of the censorship is just getting too bad now. You've got to be really careful what you say. I don't know whether I should get involved in this Getter. I suppose I'm going to be looking into that. And there are other places that we can go to as well. I'm also on Rumble. Please subscribe to me on Rumble and on Rockfin. I, for some reason, not live on Rockfin tonight. Don't know why that's not connecting, but yeah, sign up to me there and through the website. And that's the best way to keep in touch. Thank you very much, everybody, for your support. Love you all. And until next time, take care. And look after yourselves. Look after each other. Sound like Jerry Springer, don't I? Take care, everybody. Peace.